How's it going, everybody? So this is going to be the first of an intermittent series that I'm going to be doing here on YouTube, where I go over the stories that didn't fit my main daily video. So I'll be doing a lot more live streams, and today we're going to be discussing Donald Trump, the North Korea-South Korea situation, calls for the Nobel Peace Prize. We're going to be talking about Count Dankula and a little bit of the latest news there, and we're going to be talking about conservatives, or I should say young people are becoming conservative. So the first thing you should do if you are new to my channel is click that subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter at Timcast, and if you really want to support my work, you can pop over to patreon.com/Timcast and become a patron. If you want to support my work and support my channel, this is one excellent way to do it. So I'm going to start really quickly just by glancing over at the live dashboard. This is going to be, as I said, this is the first of what I'm hoping to do periodically, which is live streams as often as possible. So it might be Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. I don't really know. I'm just going to do more live streams, and that's the plan. So I want to talk about the story. Okay, let me start over. Every day I get up and I scour through the news and I decide on which story I want to work on. Today's video was why are millennials becoming conservative, and we are going to talk about that later in this live stream. But there were a few other stories that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't think were strong enough, or I'm kind of waiting. The first story that I really wanted to do, and I started preparing this, was Donald Trump, the Korean situation, and calls for whether or not he should win the Nobel Peace Prize, whether or not he deserves credit for this. There's not a whole lot behind what the story is, unless I was just going to criticize the left for refusing to give Trump a win, which I've already kind of done in the past, so I don't feel like there's enough to be said on that front. But in terms of a top story of the day, I definitely want to pull this up because this one kind of shocked me. From Reuters, Trump should win the Nobel Peace Prize, says South Korean's Moon. South Korean President Moon Jae-in said U.S. President Donald Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to end the standoff with North Korea over its nuclear weapons program, a South Korean official said on Monday. President Trump should win the Nobel Peace Prize. What we need is only peace, Moon told a meeting of senior secretaries, according to a presidential Blue House official who briefed media. So I think most of you know what is happening so far with North and South Korea. They had a summit. There was a peace declaration. Now, since then, there have been a lot of people who are in the resistance or who are on the left who don't want to give Donald Trump the win. They're saying that he didn't actually do anything. And there's actually a meme that went around exemplifying just that. You may be familiar with this very popular meme where you have someone saying, we made this, and then someone says, you made this, I made this. And this is the joke, that Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in made this Korean peace declaration, Donald Trump acknowledged they did it, and then decides he did it. This is actually something that was being shared around on Reddit, and I saw a lot of people posting this. I saw it on Facebook a little bit. And why I think it's funny is that this actually came out before this. You know, when South Korean's Moon Jae-in says Trump should win a Nobel Peace Prize, that is a dramatic step up from just deserving credit. And you can see that the sentiment has been pretty much among the resistance that Trump doesn't deserve it. And I've talked to some people, and they've asked me, why does Donald Trump deserve this? Well, according to even CNN, Trump's heavy-handed sanctions and his rhetoric pushed these discussions. It's plain and simple. There were sanctions, and Trump cooperated. He communicated with China. China helped enforce this, and ultimately it led to peace talks. So whether or not the left, the resistance, the anti-Trump group wants to acknowledge that Trump did play a role in what's happening in Korea, Korea is. Because we also have the foreign minister saying that Trump deserves the credit for this. We have the Australian Prime Minister saying Trump deserves credit for this. Seems like everyone, well, not everybody, there's a lot of people who are prominent saying that Trump deserves credit for this. I also want to take this time to point out a couple things. Click that thumbs up if you like the video, because that really helps. And also the super chat is available, so if you want your comment to appear above everybody else's and I can read that, $5 or more will put your comment in a special area, but any super chat will put your comment in a super chat box. So I'm going to hit some of these super chats first. We've got Christopher Hansen, says, thanks for more content I watch every day, now twice a day, love your level-headed honesty. Thank you, Christopher, for the super chat and tuning in. Suts Cohen, a bit of support. Do you get penalized if we do not watch your in-video ad? Is there a significant difference between watching 5 seconds versus 30 seconds of an ad? And who cares about the Nobel Prize? It's as much of a joke as the Human Rights Commission. It's hard to know exactly how YouTube functions with the algorithm because no one really knows. So if you, it's always simple. Watch as much as possible and it benefits my channel. Typically, the less you watch, the worse. I don't know if it'll actually penalize my channel or anything like that, but I think any level of watching is considered good. As for the Peace Prize, yeah, it might not be relevant to anybody, but what it does say is that there's a call for mainstream support in what Trump is doing. A lot of people feel like Trump is the outgroup and that he is a maverick who's not in the mainstream. That's just that simple. You know, Trump supporters feel like they're definitely lacking that institutional power aside from the presidency. If Trump were to win the Nobel Peace Prize, or simply the fact that people are calling, that you have South Korea saying he deserves it, and you have other people saying that he deserves his credit, shows that a lot of the people in mainstream politics are now coming out in support of Trump. And that's going to, you know what that's going to do? The average person who doesn't know whether or not they should support Trump or they're scared of being ostracized if they do, are now going to find that it's more acceptable because of calls for a peace prize. It's pretty crazy. Kevin O'Neill says, a bit off topic, but where's that Discord link? I will put a Discord link in the chat box right now because I wasn't able to download the live stream and upload to my second channel because it took too long, and I actually didn't even know if it was going to publish. And my understanding now is I've talked to a couple different people. I actually had a consultation with YouTube. I'm just going to do more live streams, and I'm going to leave the live streams up as a special second content. I'm going to try and do them. I'm going to try and do these as often as possible. I really do think that I will be able to get nearly every day on live streams, and the goal for my daily content is going to be like my videos that I do every day at 4 p.m. are going to be the same, and then around 7, I might change it to 8 p.m., but because some people were complaining they're still at work on the West Coast. But then I'll do the top 3 stories, and that'll be a live stream format, longer format. So I'll put the Discord link. I will generate one right now, actually. And I think I have it. And I'm going to place that just below the first link in the description. So hopefully that works. And then we got Reginald Cooper. Reginald Cooper says, I love you, man. Thank you. I love you all for tuning in and supporting my work. So anyway, I guess we can sort of wrap up this story because it's not too complicated. A lot of people have called for Trump to win the Nobel Peace Prize, mostly his supporters, for obvious reasons. So if you go on Twitter and you search this, you can see people just screaming he deserves it. But if you go on certain subreddits, certain Reddit communities, you'll see them all saying that Trump did nothing. There are comments saying things like, if all you need to do to win the Nobel Peace Prize is post, hyperbolic tweets and try and start a nuclear war, then sure, he deserves it. Just ridiculous things like that. And I think why I think this matters is that this is what I tweeted out a few days ago. I do not like the fact the U.S. is intervening in Syria. I do not like the idea of going to war, typically opposed to it. I don't like the fact that we're engaging in drone strikes in Yemen, or that there was a raid in Yemen that killed a young American girl last year. That's the kind of thing that Obama was doing, and I'm typically opposed to extrajudicial assassination, as I think most people are. I'm not cool with the Saudi arms deal. There's a lot of things that Trump is doing in terms of foreign policy, actual policy, that should be criticized. That doesn't mean I don't think people have a right to agree with what Trump's doing. No, that's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, plain and simple. But when it comes to Korea, it's a foreign policy action that has resulted in something historic. I mean, the Koreans have made a peace declaration. That's huge. If the actual peace treaty comes to pass at the end of the year, wow. And calls for denuclearization, this is incredible. And even when, look, I don't care who says Trump deserves what. I don't care how many of his supporters say he deserves it. I don't care how many anti-Trump people say he doesn't. President Moon Jae-in of South Korea said he deserves it, and that is profound. So, You know, I think it's a bit silly. A lot of people are critical of Trump for strange reasons, like that they don't like that he tweets. Who cares if the president is tweeting? I get it. It's the idea of having a sound messenger, someone who represents your country well. But I want to focus on policy decisions, and you know, I've criticized his foreign policy. Plain and simple, and I think this is one area where he definitely deserves credit for a win. I think South Korea said it. It's crazy to me to think that people are going to refute that, but sure enough, they do. There's got to be some level of reasonability. I mean, simply because someone is a bad person doesn't mean they don't ever deserve any credit. And one thing I always try to say is that if you think someone is a bad person and they do something good, you should encourage the good behavior. Imagine what would happen if everyone who opposed Trump came out right now screaming and cheering in favor of Trump. Trump would feel like what he was doing was being validated and he should do more of it. So if his work is going to, if his administration, his policy is going to bring about peace on the Korean Peninsula, encourage that kind of behavior, because we didn't send a military intervention, and hopefully that's not what happens. So encourage good behavior, even if you think someone's a bad person, because you're going to encourage them to become better people. Plain and simple, right? Is that hard to understand? I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats. And another thing I want to mention too before we go to the next story: comment. If you are watching, just whatever you think, put in the comments. Engaging with the channel is really helpful too, and I hope anybody who is on the channel isn't nervous about engaging and commenting and getting on board with all that. And it also does help the channel when you engage, so do it to it. I'm gonna save. Which one should I save for last? Well, let's hop over to a kind of a recap of the video that I already did today. And this one I'm gonna go over very quickly. This is an exclusive from Reuters that Democrats are losing ground with millennials, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. And I do want to stress, because I did say this in my video, maybe I didn't say it strong enough, but it's one poll. I also had a few other studies that I don't have pulled up right now, but are in my video. And look, it's just one poll. There's a million different sources. It's all conflicting. It's hard to know what's what. But we've got a study from last year. We've got some professors coming out, and there tends to be some belief among many people that millennials are becoming more conservative, but so is Generation Z. And so I don't want to go over everything in the story, but we'll start here. The online survey of more than 16,000 registered voters ages 18 to 34 shows their support for Democrats over Republicans for Congress slipped by about 9 percentage points over the past 2 years to 46% overall, and they increasingly say the Republican Party is a better steward of the economy. Also keep in mind, a lot of people are critical of the fact that this is an online survey, which can be easily manipulated. We're in an era where it's really hard to know what's true, plain and simple. And, you know, if you want to trust this is Reuters and Ipsos. Reuters is considered very credible. I trust Reuters to a great degree. When it comes to news sources, they tend to be the most blunt, cut and dry. I think they do a good job. They're not the same as a lot of these other sites like, you know, Vox or Mike or anything like that, or even the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal have their slant. Reuters tends to be pretty good. But they do have this graph that I want to highlight, and this is what's really fascinating to me. So when you look at all the millennials, in 2016, all millennials were at 55% in support of the Dems, and in 2018, it's down to 46%. But the Republicans only went up by 1 point. So in 2016, millennials supported Republicans 27%, but only 28%. That means whatever this loss is did not go to the Republicans. If you were to ask me, I think that's the Democratic Socialists. A lot of people who were on board with the Democratic Party, well, they were in for Bernie. And when Bernie got screwed over, and he did, I mean, there was collusion, there was cheating, these people aren't going Dem, and they're not going Republican. You can see that gap has widened. So it says don't know or other. I'm sure other is probably a lot of don't know, but I'm sure the Democratic Socialists are in there as well. I guess this is a bit unsurprising, but 18 to 34-year-old white millennials, you can see that 47% in 2016 and 33% toward the Republicans. But here's also what's really interesting is that it's even. In 2018, white millennials are split evenly between Democrat and Republican at 39%. That's pretty amazing. And now here's the one that does not surprise me at all. White male millennials. In 2016, yeah, they were for the Democrats at 48%. And it's inverted. It's almost inverted perfectly. That the majority has now switched to the Republicans. So they had 36% support for the Republicans, but today it's 46 for the Republicans and 37 for the Dems, so almost the same thing. I think it's obvious to say why white male millennials are supporting the Republicans. Because there's a lot of talk on the left criticizing, or I should say downright attacking individuals for their gender and their race, which is, in my opinion, it's almost ironic or paradoxical that you would say racism is bad. You should say you shouldn't judge someone based on the color of their skin, but the content of their character, and that the millennial generation has been progressive. So when you have millennials who are non-white or non-male, sure, they're going to keep pushing for policies that benefit minorities. But when you have white men who are the brunt of these attacks, they're going to switch, they're going to flip. That is totally unsurprising. We'll come back to this. I want to get to these super chats. Something completely different says, I've had it with the faux nationalist alt-right. They are no better or less globalist than the libtard alt-left, and a beer emoji. I don't drink beer, but that, I think that's Norwegian, 50, will go towards a fancy lemonade. Laz is online. Thank you for that super chat. This is a huge $200. Tim, I'm currently stationed in Japan, and your news and information helps me understand and grasp what is going on back home in the U.S. and what to expect when I come back. Thanks for all the hard work you do. I really appreciate the super chat, and I also want to just say the news you get from me is through my lens, which means I'm not seeing every news story. And as you can tell from the videos I did today, the video I made today was about millennials becoming conservative, and the story about Trump and the Koreas and the Peace Prize didn't make the cut. So if you do watch my daily content, you're still going to need to watch a lot more and read a lot more news. But I do appreciate everybody who appreciates my work, supports my work, and I'm really grateful that you guys find value in what I do. Seriously, I love doing it, so I'll keep doing it. And I've got some trips planned. Yeah, got some more super chats here. Old lady says, my cry, free the Hammonds, save our American West. Love your work. Thank you for educating. Thank you for the super chat. And then we have Eric Peters, gotta love millennials. And it says Micah Taylor and a link. I don't know how to share the link or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to do something like that. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats. And we got one right here from Z. It says, can you put streams up on channel after you stream? Yes. So I was contemplating back and forth whether or not I should keep the streams as VOD, it's video on demand, or turn them private. I was advised by my MCN to turn them private because it would be bad for my channel or something like that. But ultimately I figured, no, I'm just gonna, you can see the title of this video is Top 3 Stories of April 30th. So I'm gonna create a custom thumbnail for that. I'm gonna treat it like any other video and put it up. And that way, for people who come in, I want to make sure I get the top 3 stories out of the way as quickly as possible while still engaging with everybody who's in the live chat. And then after the first 20 minutes or so, I'll do 40 minutes of just general conversation like I normally do, and then have an hour live stream every night where you guys... I think what's valuable here is that, I do try to get to the chat outside of Super Chat, and I will definitely do that after I get this last story. But being able to ask questions and interact is probably the most valuable thing that I have ever done with news. When I first got started doing this, when I was live streaming, say, at Occupy Wall Street, what was so powerful about it was that people could talk to me while I was on the ground, give me advice, fact check, or ask questions and direct me. And I want to make sure that that is something I keep doing. So I thought it would be really cool if I did a Top Stories news show, but you were able to interact at the same time. Seems like a pretty cool thing, huh? Someone says, clean up your room. Hey, it's not messy. You ragging on my room. Rage Scholar says, Tim, you could find a happy medium in unlisting them and then having them as a playlist. I think I'm just going to have them as a playlist. I'm going to have the top stories playlist. What I'm going to be doing now is, I started this last week, I'm creating a playlist of all of my daily videos. And then beneath that, I'm going to have a playlist of top 3 news stories. So with that being said, let's wrap up this last news story that made me laugh really loud and probably angered my neighbors. But this one is great. This story is from heraldscotland.com. It says, Nazi dog YouTuber Mark Meechan donates court fine to charity. That's not what's funny, okay? What's funny is what Count Dankula... This is Count Dankula, for those that aren't familiar. And I'll just give you a quick recap. He made a video where he taught his girlfriend's dog to raise his paw when he said, the Nazi call. I don't want to say it because YouTube might punish my channel. And he had the dog react to Hitler. A lot of people find it really funny. I gotta be honest, I think it's really funny. It's a silly, stupid little video. He says that Nazis are the least adorable thing on the planet, so you know what his position is. He thinks Nazis are bad people, but he was arrested, charged, convicted of being grossly offensive, and he had to give an £800 fine to the courts. But here's what he did instead. He said, "Oh dear, I went to pay my fine and my finger must have slipped, silly me," because he gave a donation of £800 to the Glasgow Children's Hospital charity. They responded with, "Your donation will help us to ensure that the 160,000 babies, children, and young people treated at the Royal Hospital for Children in Glasgow every year receive the best possible care." This made me laugh. I gotta say, I really do find Count Dankula funny, and that's my bias. I try not to assume the intentions of individuals. And so if Count Dankula says that he's meant to poke fun and call Nazis, you know, the least adorable thing, and making the joke is having a cute animal react to something vulgar, sounds like comedy to me. He said it wasn't intended on being hateful. He says, you know, he's not trying to be offensive to anybody. I mean, what else do you want to say? I mean, if he says these are the things he believes, then you can only take his word for it or think he's a liar, in which case I think he's a comedian. I've seen much more offensive comedy from a lot more people. So in my opinion, it is shocking that he was arrested, charged, convicted. What's interesting now is he didn't pay the court the fine. He is appealing, okay, and he's got a fundraiser going up. I wonder if he's gonna go to jail now if he doesn't pay this fine. I don't know. I don't know how the Scottish legal system works. But with that, let's move on to the next little tidbit in the Count Dankula story arc. He's so far raised £158,585 towards his £100,000 goal for his appeal. So what Dankula has said is that all of this is going into escrow. It's going to be controlled by the lawyers, by the firm that he hires, and that he did say that he wanted to make sure the bills were public, but I don't know if the legal teams would allow that. They might say they can't do that. It might interfere with other clients or confidentiality. But he has said any money left over will be donated to charity. In my opinion, I trust Count Dankula, but I mean, that doesn't mean he's actually going to do it. Trusting someone and knowing, like, you know, trustworthiness is based off of the fact that I just choose to trust him. You know, I really can't say whether or not you or anyone else should, but in my opinion, I think he's trustworthy. We'll see what happens. This is a massive sum of money. He is 58.58% above his initial goal. So this is amazing. And I want to point out too, what's really amazing about this is that he could have just asked for £800. He could have just paid the fine and this would all be over. But by giving that £800 to the Children's Hospital and not paying his fine, he is risking jail time in the name of defending his principles. I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And the fact that people would donate well beyond his goal. These are people standing up for their principles too, and I also have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And now I'm going to use this opportunity to be a little bit critical towards some other people, and then I want to make sure I get some of these super chats in. I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but there have been a few people who have been chased away by socialists or anti-fascists, and they say, oh, I didn't want it to get violent or anything like that. I went to an event, a protest at Columbia University. Mike Cernovich was speaking. I was outside by the protest filming because I was going to make a little montage when someone accused me of being alt-right and they started screaming at me. And so I stood there and I filmed it. And I said, carry on. Wonderful, you're protesting, you have a right to free speech, you can say whatever you want. They surrounded me, they yelled at me, accused me of being friends with Mike Cernovich, which is absolutely not true. There's a lot of things to criticize Cernovich for, but I try not to declare enemies, and we're on friendly terms. I guess it's the right way to say it. We're polite. I'll see him, I'll say, Mike, good to see you. And I think I've interviewed him twice. That's about it. He's a personality. We have almost no interaction. And these people at this protest were trying to accuse me of being like part of his inner circle or something so that they could have an excuse to scream at me. So I just stood there. Eventually they got tired. There have been several instances where people didn't do that. They backed away, they gave up, and I really don't appreciate that. You know, I don't want to be overtly disrespectful, but listen. You've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to stand up for your principles. You can't back down. Count Dankula, at least as far as I know, is risking jail time for this. That's impressive. Whether or not you agree with him, this is somebody who said they truly believe what they're doing is right, that he has a right to his jokes, to his speech, and it wasn't about the money because he donated to a children's hospital. It's about sending a message, which I think is pretty interesting. So I want to get to these super chats. I don't want to miss anybody. So let me see. Okay, so we have Crag says, do you have Streamlabs 1 can donate to instead of Super Chat? Users can send money without Google taking most of it along with a message, question, etc. Yes, I do have Streamlabs. Maybe I can find the link for that really quick. I think it's like streamlabs.com/timcast. That might be it. Let me try that. Let me see if that works. Yes, streamlabs.com/timcast. So, you know, I have that up, but I had it up before, but I've found that, you know, it doesn't really. I'll put it in the top description. I don't know if this actually works. I don't know if this description gets updated, but streamlabs.com/timcast. If you donate through there, Super Chat, a portion of that goes to YouTube, like 30%, some ridiculous number. And then of that remaining 70%, my MCN takes 10%, which that's cool. I appreciate full screen support of my work and how they help me out, so they deserve that. But YouTube taking 30% of a donation is like rather shocking. I can't believe that because, you know, Super Chats are almost donations, so it's interesting. But if you go through Streamlabs, it's an entirely different system. I don't know. I haven't set anything up with them, so I don't know. I think it might go to PayPal or something. I have no idea. Suts Cohen says, I don't know. He's quoting me saying, I don't know how the Scottish legal system works. And he says, well, yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. I guess that's fair. So one thing, a couple things I've heard in terms of the Count Dankula story is that he didn't have a big following. He had like 7. The number always changes. First, they're like, he had 10 subscribers, and someone said 8, then said 7, then they said 5. I'm like, look, he had a small amount of subscribers that was just didn't. There was no big audience for this, and it was the government that came after him, not the any complainant or anyone who was offended. So it's pretty scary when you hear that that's what happened, and that it was a judge trial. There was no jury. So Seymour Johnson, Super Chat, he says, why do you pander to a right-wing audience? It really appears you're trying to court the Sargon of Akkad le unbiased centrist group. I don't think I pander to a right-wing audience. Dave Rubin talked about this, and I think, you know, he made some good points. I don't want to quote him, but for me, I mean, look, Sargon of Akkad is social. He says classical liberal, I think, but his political compass is social liberal. It's like close to Bernie Sanders, and I fall in a very similar category. The reason why I personally am critical of things on the left, and I am critical of things on the right, it's because I am on the left. I've always been on the left, and so when I see bad things happening on the left, I call it out. People ask me why I don't call it Fox News or InfoWars. I don't watch Fox News or InfoWars. It's that simple. I mean, I read the New York Times. I read the Washington Post. And so when they do something, I call it out. It's that simple, I suppose. There have been instances where I literally just criticized Trump on his foreign policy. I've made videos about foreign policy where I've straight criticized him, but I never want to fall into that trap where it's like you have to pretend like you have to just, oh, if I'm going to criticize someone on the left, I better make sure I criticize someone on the right, just so it appears like I'm impartial, because that's just silly. Bold Like a Leopard says, have you read the Matt's file yet? I've sent it to you several times. I have not. I don't know if I got that. So apologies for if I get a lot of emails. I don't know. Sorry. You know, I do my best, but it's like I went out for lunch and came back to like 40 emails, so I can only do so much. So I apologize for that. Someone says you should watch Tucker though. I've watched Tucker sometimes. I was on Tucker Carlson. I don't know, several months ago. I think this was like maybe like September or October, something like that. I'm pretty sure it was Tucker Carlson. I've been on, I think, Cavuto. It's funny, I was on MSNBC back in 2012 after I got attacked by someone in Black Bloc. A man wearing all black, one of his friends, this guy blinded me with a flashlight. His friend came up and hit me. My phone went flying, and then MSNBC hit me up and said, "Can you come on and talk about this?" My opinions on that haven't changed, but this is strange because MSNBC said, "Tim, why are you being attacked by anarchists?" Well, last year, it was Tucker Carlson who had me on for the exact same reason. So you can see how things have changed. It's really strange to me that MSNBC, you know, Rachel, this is like the network with Rachel Maddow, had me on because I was attacked, and 5 years later, it's Tucker Carlson who would talk about the exact same thing. So you can see there is some kind of like partisan shift happening. Z says, you should set up cryptocurrency donations like Nano or Ethereum would probably be a good idea. I don't think you pander to the right like someone said. I do have cryptocurrency donations set up. If you go to timcast.com/donate, I have addresses for a few different. Let me see what I have up there on my website. I've got Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum. Those are the main ones that I'm using. And, you know, people have told me to use, like, Dash or Ripple and some other stuff, but it's just, I can't make a list of, like, 87 cryptocurrencies, you know what I mean? Pasos Largos says, hey, Tim, I watch your videos morning when I wake up in Korea. It's 8:30 a.m. here. Keep up the good work. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much. So, GJN Lamash2 says, the role of Reuters in the distribution of propaganda news in Australia during World War I. I think you're saying that they did do that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll look into that, I suppose. Skit the Desert. Why don't you stop pandering to the leftist and stop supporting MSNBC, YouTube, and New York Times? That's another interesting thing, too, because, you know, when someone says that I pander to the right, I use mainstream sources that the right doesn't like. I defend, to an extent, mainstream media. So I feel like I'm kind of just right in the middle. You know, I don't... Yeah. And I want to point out, too, that when it comes to institutional power, like movies, like universities, and, yes, large portions of government, the left controls it. I mean, the presidency and Congress, you've got the Republicans. But Trump is kind of different from traditional Republicans. The left, as we describe it today, holds most of the institutional power, and it's easily exemplified by the idea when everyone says, oh man, they would never make that movie today. Like, go watch Groundhog Day. Like, a good portion of Groundhog Day is the main character trying to sleep with the woman he works with. A total Me Too moment. I can't see a movie like that being made today. That would be ridiculous. Something completely different said, the U.S. Trump election is just reality TV series. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Sam Core says, why are you pandering to anyone but my view? You must agree with me. Yeah. And you know what, too? A lot of people say that, I probably say this in every live stream, that I'm unbiased, but I just think I'm me. I mean, I'm biased. I don't know. I just try to be intellectually honest, I guess. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I guess my only assumption is that journalists, a lot of them, really are trying to lie. Silly Sailor says, stop pandering to the center, Tim. Yeah. I think ultimately, you know, the reason why I find myself kind of center, if I am center, I feel kind of like I am, is that I'm trying to understand everybody, and in order to do that, I have to not disrespect people, like, yeah, otherwise I'll never want to talk to you. Not only that, I just don't think I'm smart enough to know what the solution to most of these problems are. And a lot of political fights are opinions that don't have a real solution other than what people might think should be done. When it comes to pro-life and pro-choice, for instance, opinion. That's it. There's no fact that states when someone should or should not be allowed to have an abortion or whether they should. It's really just different perspectives competing for a majority power to determine what they should or should not be, what society should or should not be allowed to do. In which case, if I don't have a list of facts that's going to tell me what is and should be, then I can't really tell people what they should do with their lives. What are you going to do? I don't know. I want to make sure I didn't miss any super chats here. Some Dirt Dog says Groundhog's Day is a great flick, you commies. And then so Dean Corn says radical centrist. Yep. Stop pandering to Tim Pool's opinions. There's what's Ghostbusters? I think Peter Venkman like brings a sedative. I think he brought like a syringe, or something. I mean, let me do a search. How do you spell Venkman? It was like he brought some like a sedative. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna pull this up so you guys can read it, and this is the point I'm trying to make. So I just Google searched this, and it says, why did Venkman have sedatives on his date with Dana? The title says it all. Why did Venkman have sedatives on his date with Dana? A syringe full of Thorazine is not a normal thing to carry, especially on a date. It's pretty crazy. Someone says he's a doctor, but not that kind of doctor, which is really strange. But someone then says, you know, being a Ghostbuster is not a normal job either. To be fair, not entirely sure it's reasonable to subject a film to the standard ideas about what is or is not normal. The point is, there are a lot of movies where they couldn't be made today. And I think this is kind of evidence that, well, at least for now, the left is holding institutional power and holds more ground. I mean, you could say the presidency is a more important position, sure. But I think when it comes to journalism, when it comes to movies and media, that controls the minds of the population, of the people. And let me pull this up. There's a... Yeah, here we go. Micah Brzezinski on MSNBC said, it is our job to control exactly what people think. I'll play this clip in a second, but I want to hit these super chats. Pasos Largo says, do you think that at this point it's safe to say collusion between Trump and Russia is BS and that Mueller investigation should end? I don't know. I think there's... It's a tough question. I don't think there's collusion personally. I don't think I know enough about it to be correct about it. So if it's tough. There's a lot of people who think there is something there. It's been so long and nothing's really come of it. And everyone keeps saying with every new indictment, these people are going to flip on Trump, and then it doesn't happen. So it is frustrating for me. I think the collusion thing is a bunch of hype. And honestly, I do think like it's fairly heavy nonsense, but there might be something there. It's just, you have to realize it's nuanced, right? I don't think there's like Donald Trump secretly like meeting with Putin, you know, at some brothel in some dark, distant location, and they're, you know, twirling their mustaches, planning the end of the world. But sure, conversations might have happened that Trump might have thought were innocuous, but may actually be illegal. Who knows? I don't know if I know enough about it or have strong enough opinion to say whether Mueller or not should or should not be investigating. I do think it is worrisome when you do have, if it is the case that Trump is totally innocent. And I think this really might be a deflection on the part of the Dems, because they absolutely colluded with media and absolutely sabotaged Bernie Sanders' opportunity at the nomination. I want to know why we don't have that conversation, because that was election meddling to an extreme degree. And you can tell by young people switching to Republican or just abandoning the Democrats. Dustin Henry says, people don't want news, they want answers. This is unfortunate, but I appreciate you don't pretend to have simple answers to complex questions. I don't think I could ever possibly know enough to tell people what they should or should not think. It just seems crazy to me. If you live on a farm, you know farming. I would never argue with you that you should or should not be allowed to do certain farming practices. That's just insane. Sutskowen says, today I learned Hillary dabbed. Hitler didn't go far enough. And okay, I can't read that. And you already got me to read part of it, so now I might get... You see, that's the kind of thing that get my channel banned. So, Christian Pinto says, Tim, now I gotta read these before... I can't just read them out loud. Christian Pinto says, Tim, sans assuming intention, might there be a political reason why South Korea or Australia might want to make Trump look good? I don't know. I mean, other than it helps their cause, and if their cause is peace in the peninsula or whatever Australia might want, I have no idea. Sachin says, Tim, what's the best ice cream flavor? Ooh, best ice cream flavor. You know what I really like? I like Milk and Cookies by Ben & Jerry's. It's like a chocolate cookie and chocolate chip cookie and chocolate and vanilla ice cream. It's a pretty good flavor, gotta say. And then Nicole Marie says, have you read any Thomas Sowell? I've watched a lot of his interviews and just started reading Black Rednecks and White Liberals. He is brilliant. I haven't. Yeah, see, this is what happens when people stream, because either we'll read out the super chats or we'll read out the comments. And this happens all the time, where people will post words that sound really, really bad. like racial slurs, but when you look at it, you don't realize it and you say it. Or when someone posts something like that and then I end up just reading it, you got me. And hopefully it doesn't get my channel banned on YouTube, and I have to be more careful about that. So let me make sure I didn't miss any. Linky Poo says, hey Tim, any news on Catalonia independence? Not really. I mean, of course there's always news, but as far as I've been following it, I don't think there's anything that's been impactful enough for me to be focused on. So not really, although there has been updates pertaining to, like, I'm going to pronounce his name terribly, but Puigdemont, pronounce his name awfully, forgive me. There's been protests and things like that, but, you know, honestly, this kind of stuff happens all the time, so it's hard to keep on my radar. At the time I went and covered it, you know, I got the flag behind me. I do have the Spanish flag, too, you just can't see it, because this whole wall is decorated. It was much bigger news, you know, so... Got a super chat here from Robert Lafargue. Do you think some of YouTube's nuanced approach to promoting creators keep you from going out and working on bigger projects in lieu of doing daily news videos in your apartment? Yes and no. So the thing is, when I first started this, before Vice, you know, before Fusion, before Vice, I would do a live stream once every other month because news doesn't always happen. So what the goal was with the YouTube channel was, if I make a video every single day, there's something that people can come and watch, something I can do in between big breaking stories. Albeit, when I was at Vice, I would spend this time in researching, and then I would go on a trip, and we'd produce like a documentary every month. Sometimes less, but we would do like a documentary and then a live stream later, and they really wanted me to do more live streams, but you can't stream nothing. You know, this works because we're talking about news stories and we're engaging. So it's challenging how YouTube has structured its system. They want people to remain on your page as long as possible. If that happens, YouTube will start promoting your channel more. So one of the reasons for the live stream is I want to make sure I'm producing as much as possible on my YouTube channel to give you all a reason to stay on my channel as long as possible. Plain and simple. And I really enjoy doing it. I mean, I'm really excited for doing a top 3 stories thing. The first 20 minutes are probably the top 3 stories, followed by Q&A, what we're doing now. And we're going to be up for another 18 minutes, so make the best of it. Milton Nation says, I was stationed as an active E-duty Army soldier in West Berlin when the gates opened at Checkpoint Charlie. Thankfully, peace ensued. I was also stationed in Korea, but I don't know if North Korea can be trusted. I gotta say, I completely agree about that North Korea stuff. Pluto says something about flags. The fold marks hurt him, and... Oh, please iron your flags. The fold marks hurt me. Yep. I did not iron that flag. Let me scroll down in the comments. And, yeah, we'll just try and hit as much as in the comments as possible. You know, one of the hard things about live streaming is I literally have to talk nonstop. I forgot. I was going to show you guys this clip, and then I got carried away with the super chat. So let me pull this clip up right now so you can see this, and hopefully it's loud enough. But let me just jump to the middle here.
Edges here are that he's trying to undermine the media, trying to make up his own facts, and it could be that while unemployment and the economy worsens, he could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah, if you look at the...
Let's play that last little clip once again.
People think, and that is the role. Exactly what people think.
Wait.
Could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah.
I hope that was just her misspeaking, but from the way she was behaving, it kind of felt like she knew where she was going with that. That freaked me out, that clip. They're worried that Trump can actually control what people think, but it's their job. It's a lot of people think. You know, I've worked in these offices. There are a lot of people, they come from the ivory tower. It is the ivory tower. Elite, educated, you know, college liberals, whatever you want to call them, think they're smarter than everyone. It blows my mind, the arrogance. And that's something I just don't have. It's funny because I consider myself to be a fairly arrogant person. You know, I go to the skate park. I'm maybe overconfident is better. But I just would never believe that I know more. Like, there's a 50-year-old guy living in the middle of America who's, you know, he's a carpenter or something. He knows what he needs for his job. He pays taxes. He knows what he knows. And if he tells me that being a carpenter is hard because of these reasons, I'm going to be like, oh, wow, I never knew that. I'm not a carpenter. If he says that taxes affect him in this way and this is what he wants to change, I'll say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I don't run a business like you. I don't deal with the same kind of taxes. So it blows my mind that you're going to have people working in these offices who have never experienced that, telling everyone else how they should think and how they should live. And there you heard it, Micah Brzezinski. They're worried that Trump is stealing their powers. Nicole Marie says, was there something wrong about my question asking you about Thomas Sowell? I didn't understand your comment about reading things that sound bad. No. I don't know a whole lot about Thomas Sowell. I know that I think Dave Rubin had him on. Maybe it was Dave Rubin. I don't really know enough about it to have an opinion, but I haven't read anything by him. So, yeah. Taylor Ikari says, I'm reading Kill All Normies by Angela Nagel. It's a history of 4chan culture and the culture war. Have you interviewed or spoken with her? I haven't. But I started reading that book, and after the first few pages, I threw it, and I said, this book is awful. The book is terrible. You know why? For one, she calls Gavin McInnes one of the founders of Vice. Like, founder. That means person who made, right? She calls him an editor at Vice, which is so bad. That's just not true. Gavin made Vice. Gavin McInnes, Sarush Alvi, and Shane Smith together started Voice of Montreal, which eventually became Vice. Gavin left in 2007. He was not an editor. He was an editor. He was extremely influential in the growth of that company. And there's a bunch of other things that she got wrong. I'm pretty sure that when she talks about like Gamergate and stuff and like Anita Sarkeesian, it is one-sided in that it paints Anita Sarkeesian as this, like a victim. And that is a perspective that people hold. I don't think anyone's innocent. I certainly think she got death threats. I certainly think people associated with her, they're flinging mud at each other. And the reason why that also comes off as bad to me is that I know that the story isn't one-sided. Stories are never that black and white. There's nuance, and we've all heard the stories about people like Anita Sarkeesian. Not to be overly disrespectful, but I mean, even what happened with what happened at VidCon, where she called Sargon a garbage human. What was shocking to me is that someone up on stage would direct, anger and insult someone in the audience directly. It's entirely unprofessional. So, that being said, these are people who are coming after each other. And that's exemplified by, Anita on stage and some other things that happened at VidCon that I won't, get into. But I'm not a big fan of that book. I didn't finish it because they were just, I think I counted like 4 or 5 errors in the first, 10 pages. And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. So, Left Thinking says, how do you cope with subjective opinion-based news and find fact? I study astrophysics. Mathematical proofs barely convince me of a theory until I see independent, experimentally verified predictions. It is really annoying to read opinion that's masquerading as fact. There was a story about Ellen Pao. She was, at one point, the CEO of Reddit. She was outed. She lost her job, and I think she resigned. The New York Times wrote a story. It said, Ellen Pao resigns. And it was like 200 words. Ellen Pao resigned today, stating that, the company can't function, blah, 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 end of story. This post was, I think it was the number 3 and number 5 all-time highest rated, highest upvoted post on Reddit. The next day, when I clicked those links, the story was different. The story was now Ellen Pao, Silicon Valley 2.0, the battle rages on, sexism, misogyny, yada, yada. And it became an opinion piece. And that was really shocking to me. To me, I was like, whoa, this is a scandal. Because people were sharing the story. It was on Reddit, top number 1, all-time 3 and 5 ranking. And so they changed a fact-based story overnight to an opinion piece. And this was alarming to me. And it turns out almost every news organization does this. They will alter an article entirely without telling anybody. They won't put an update. They won't issue corrections. It'll just change. And why that's so scary? Imagine someone, and this is what the example I gave to my liberal friends who were like, why? It's fine. They were like, this is true. It's all true. Their opinions are right. And I'm like, no, listen. Imagine you read a story and it said, a woman killed in San Diego in hit and run. And that's it. And you see this, a woman, traveling home was killed in a hit and run, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day, the title changed to illegal immigrant vile murderer takes the life of a baby and is destroying the sanctity of our country. And it was this ridiculously biased anti-immigrant, saying like Trump was right about these illegals doing these things, and it was just the most extreme Trump-style rhetoric. How would you feel about that? Because imagine you share that story. Imagine you hear about this hit and run, and you go, oh my God, and you share that on your Facebook. And then an hour later, they change the story to be something extremely offensive. And now you have family members and friends who are going, oh my God, why are they sharing this? When people share a link, they expect the link to represent what they saw in the link. And for news stories to change that, especially to opinion, terrifying. John D. Lagarde says, do you ever make trips down to Texas? NRA convention in Dallas this coming weekend might be interesting. Oh yeah, it would be interesting. I don't think I'd make it. I might go to London. So we'll see. They're doing the Day of Freedom thing. I don't know if I'll go. You know, the challenge is everyone there is a huge personality who's going to be able to produce their own content about the event. Granted, while they're speaking, they won't be, and I will be able to live stream and get something out quicker than they are because I'm more accustomed to it. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But I am hoping to do some interviews with some people who are going to be there. I want to do an interview with Tommy Robinson, just because I'm really fascinated by the extreme difference of opinion between the left and the right faction. Because, you know, he comes out and says, Tommy says he's not racist and that he's got, you know, he's being maligned and things like that, and he's focused on religions and not race. But the left, they just call him a Nazi. So I think it would be great to have a conversation with him about, like, his opinions out. You know, basically, I feel like he's very hyper-focused on the issue of Islam. And, you know, by all means, you can be focused on whatever you want. But I think it would be interesting to talk to him about other opinions, like economics, you know, yeah, foreign policy, healthcare, things like that, and then actually determine where he really is on the political compass, because everyone just calls him far right and things. I think I'm guilty of doing that once because I didn't really know a lot about him, and I think that'd be a fun conversation. We'll see what happens. Speaker Wigan 49 says, hi Tim, love your journalism. I am a liberal who was assaulted by Antifa on MSU campus March 5th. If I PM you on Minds, do you want to hear my story? Email me instead, tim@tagg.ly. My email is on my Twitter account. Shoot me an email, and yes, I would love to hear your story. That'd be interesting. There's another super chat I think I may have missed. Bill Ray says you should do a collaboration with Hard News Network. Not familiar with Hard News Network. I'm totally open to collaborations. You know, yeah, I should do whatever. Someone says YouTube bleeped it. Someone said, yes, Tommy Robinson is an amazing story that should get his word out. I mean, look, the people who follow me, I think most of you know who Tommy Robinson is. And I'm not going to convince anybody who thinks he's a Nazi that he's not a Nazi. The reason I do what I do is because I'm trying to learn. And so if in that in the course of understanding and learning, other people can as well, it works out. I think, you know, I think Tommy Robinson and I exchanged some messages after the Sweden trip, but we never linked up because I really just didn't know who he was or what he was about. And I got to be honest, I was being very careful about associations because it was a very volatile situation with Sweden. But I know some people who have vouched for him. I've heard some crazy stories about how people will come up to him on the street, they'll look around to make sure no one can see, and then shake his hand and tell him how much they love and respect him, because people are scared of being associated with him because of how bad the media has maligned him. And that fascinates me too. So I'd like to have a conversation and actually have him, you know, state on the record his politics outside of, you know, his main body of work, and then, you know, just, yeah, kind of carry it on from there. I think it'd be interesting. David Stump says, I think news programs should try to be as objective as possible, rather than mostly subjective views I often see most of late. Well, here's the challenge. If I were to make a channel that was extremely hyperbolic, extreme opinion, that was liberal or conservative, and I just made fun of the other side, people in either tribe like that. Not everybody, but a lot of people do, because it satisfies them, it gives them an emotional satisfaction, seeing your enemies get taken down a peg. So they share it. The content is controversial, but that gets made, so when YouTube suppresses it, it gets made up for in the fact that people will share this because they're like laughing at the libtards or laughing at the, the right-wing nut jobs, as you know. So people will share these videos. When your content is kind of just middle of the road, reasonable, bland, and kind of gives people the benefit of the doubt, people don't really want to share that, and it's controversial. So I'm getting, you know, my channel gets suppressed, my channel gets demonetized, but it's also not strong enough for anyone to be like, oh my god, this is hilarious, you got to see this guy make fun of, you know, group X or whatever. And that's a big challenge for a lot of different YouTubers. There's a lot of YouTubers who do have politics, but they're very calm and rational, and that's not what people like sharing. They like sharing these extreme caricatures, you know what I mean? Bold Like a Leopard says, sent you Met files again, please read, you can't miss. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if I... Yep, there it is. I got it. Right on, man. I'll give it a look. Drunken says the reason you have your career is because you are reasonable. Well, that may sound true, but if I was unreasonable, I would just have different people following me. And not to disparage anybody, but two individuals that come to mind are Lauren Duca on the left, who is so absurdly hyperbolic and just absolutely intellectually dishonest. And then you have people on the right, like Milo Yiannopoulos, who is a provocateur, who pokes the bear on purpose to try and get, in my opinion, when Milo got chased out of that bar, I shouldn't even say chased, but when they chanted him out and he left, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying it's true, and I don't want to assume intent, but if you're going to ask me, I think Milo left on purpose because it gave him an opportunity to talk about how this event happened and he was, attacked and things like that. If it were me, I'd have just sat there and said, cheers, keep chanting, and eventually the bartender would be like, guys, can you stop that? So I think you've got right-wing provocateurs, you've got people who want to be, shocking, who want to be aggressive, people like Ann Coulter, who, look, they got good ideas. Not every idea they have is good, but they're disrespectful and aggressive. And that works for conservatives who like to see strength. The left, you've got intellectual dishonesty. It's really easy to see how these systems work. It's really easy to see how these personalities are driven and how to gain that kind of attention and make that kind of money. Fortunately, I think everybody who follows me understands that there's value in, middle of the road, calm and reasonable, and there's value in listening to opinions other than your own and getting out of your echo chamber. Unfortunately, most people love just sitting in that hot tub of an echo chamber because it feels good. It feels real good. GJN Lamashtu says, Tim Pool, the left is attacking you nonstop. I don't think the right is doing this to you. That is a fact. Moderate leftists don't attack me. I have a lot of friends who are like moderate leftists, like moderate's fine in the word. It's like literal, like run of the mill liberals. Totally fine. We hang out. They're feminists. They talk about whatever, and we get along and we disagree and we agree. It's the fringe group of the left that absolutely does not like me. There was an interesting tweet. Actually, I want to pull this tweet up because I think it makes a great point about what we're talking about. So let me pull this up. I got a super chat I want to read real quick. From Pete V says, happy to support your work. What is your opinion on the trend to editorialize every headline in MSM? E.g., here's why, where is objective journalism? Most people know already, and that's one of the big challenges with news. We don't need to put out a headline most of the time that says something like X happened, because most people have heard it happened already because of Twitter and Facebook and other platforms. So what people are doing now is opinion, which, in my opinion, is too much. It's too often. However, analysis is good. Context and analysis are good I think. So, for example, most of my videos are like analysis pieces where I'll tell you the news of the day and then I'll bring up some context for it. So today's video, I highlighted 2 studies from last year that people were talking about, and that led us into the study from today, and so there's some context around it. I want to pull up this this tweet real quick. It might be a reply. I think it is a reply, but it's a point that I want to make. Let me see. Here we go. So this guy, Billy Bragg, says, Jonathan Pye can't understand why the right are always banging on about freedom of speech. It's really simple, John Joe. More people are calling them out for their hate speech, and they're desperately clutching for a fig leaf in the hope of legitimizing their abusive behavior. Someone responded, to be honest, I find the left more intolerant these days. Every time they hear something they don't like, they shout fascist or demand that someone is taken off air. Billy Bragg said, no one is shouting fascist. What we are demanding is that people understand that accountability is a key facet of freedom. Without it, your right to say what you want is a privilege. And I responded, I have been called all those things. And the SPLC even had to issue an apology. What am I being held accountable for? Interviewing people? This idea that no one is shouting fascist is 100% wrong. This idea that the right is only concerned because they're trying to justify hate speech is wrong. I have never spouted a word of hate speech in any body of work I've ever done on Twitter. My opinions on Twitter have only ever been in support of social justice. My documentary on Ferguson, in support of these issues the protesters were calling for. My documentary on refugees, in support of a refugee family. So why is it then that these outlets Willamette Weekly or SPLC are going to accuse me of being alt-right, or The Guardian's going to try and insinuate I'm alt-right. What am I being held accountable for? Why are they trying to say that I shouldn't have a right to do what I do? Because I'm interviewing people? They're screaming fascist at me. They're screaming alt-right at me. I've never said anything in support of these positions. Yet here I am. So this is disingenuous. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, we're talking about when we say that this argument from the left is just not true. It is without merit. It is without research. Plain and simple. I believe we are just about getting close to that time where we wrap up in about 10 seconds. We'll go a little bit over, and then this stream will go up in a new playlist I'm going to be making for top news story live streams. Each of them should be about an hour long. I really want to do them every day. It's not always possible, but what is guaranteed is that my 4 p.m. video will always be every day. My live streams, I might actually start doing at 8 p.m. I want to avoid prime time because of the talk show, you know, TV stuff like CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. But I might move it over to there. So I just heard a chime. I don't know what that was for. But here's what you got to do. Hit that thumbs up button if you made it this far. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the little bell icon to let YouTube know you do want to get my videos. Let me hit the super chat from Super Free Education. It says, "Hey Tim, not sure if you realize, but being moderate can also depend on confirmation bias. IMO, hard to explain it, but it seems to me to depend on the belief that the truth is somewhere in the middle." The truth is somewhere in the middle, usually, but sometimes conservatives got it right, sometimes liberals got it right. And that's what I think people need to understand about being moderate or centrist, is that you're willing to recognize when one side has it right and one side doesn't. It's that simple. Too many people on the left, we can go back to one of the first stories, Trump and Korea. They refuse to acknowledge Trump deserves credit on this. They refuse to give him credit for a win. Well, that's unreasonable. We can criticize Trump for the things we don't like that he did, and I straight up said it. Syria intervention, Yemen drone strikes, Saudi weapons deal. 3 big main policy actions taken by the Trump administration that I think were wrong and he shouldn't have done. And I can still acknowledge that the Korean Peninsula, that what he did in terms of sanctions and rhetoric worked, and he deserves credit for that win. Look, we still got 3 negative things and 1 positive thing. So, you know, from even if you're someone who doesn't like Trump, giving him a win doesn't absolve him of everything you would criticize him for. I think it's silly when people criticize him for stupid pop culture-ish kind of things, like the way he talks or he's too mean and things like that. Look, people have personality. Sometimes they have bad personalities. But let's keep the argument something that can be debated in terms of policy. There is a point to be made about Trump being a bad messenger. Absolutely, that's debatable. But most of the arguments we hear about Trump are Russian collusion in the Mueller investigation. I get news alerts, I get email alerts from left-wing and right-wing organizations. And I've gotten maybe like 7 emails about Trump threatening Mueller's job, I'm going to fire him. And I'm like, what? Nothing's happening. Trump didn't fire him. Like, send me an email when he does, okay? But why are they sending me this stuff? It's like gossip nonsense. You want to criticize Trump? Seriously, Syria just happened, but oh no, many people on the left supported that intervention, so I guess they'll give him that win. It's strange, but being in the middle, being centrist, it's just I think all it really means is that you're willing to acknowledge that some people are right and some people are wrong, and politics don't really matter if you're right or if you're wrong. If you have the facts on your side, there you go, you were right. Pete V says, "I'll pay another $5 if you play us out on one of your guitars." Maybe on my second channel another time. I think it's about time we wrap up, so make sure you follow me on Twitter at Timcast. I will have another video tomorrow at 4 p.m. And assuming I don't get super busy, I'm going to try and do the top 3 stories every day. But it might end up being you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We'll see what happens. I might just do them periodically. And this will be up, archived, and visible. So thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. New video tomorrow at 4 p.m. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the 800,000th time.